Hello to my fellow history lovers and people that think if I learn something new today, it will be a good day. I have been learning about the French Revolution, and it's not my wheelhouse. So if I say something and you think, I don't think she has that right, definitely let me know. But it comes up a lot, it being the French Revolution, in this John Adams book that I've been reading for the Kept Westgard series as research. And I've been trying to understand how did things turn out differently. The French Revolution, not only the mass executions, just horrifying reign of terror, but they end up with a military dictatorship. The US revolution ends up with a constitution. And why did it come out so differently? And I've talked in other videos about other issues, including like economic issues. But at the heart of it, I think it's these two men. So the US, the American Revolution has George Washington, and the French Revolution has Robespierre. And they could not be more different. So they start the same in the sense, and ironically, I learned that Robespierre was nicknamed the Incorruptible. And that was ironic because one of the reasons I always thought Washington, that we were truly, truly could not have been more lucky to have Washington as our first leader, is because I think he really was incorruptible in the sense that he stepped down from power after winning the war. And a lot of people said the country's in chaos. Remember, we don't even have a Congress. We don't have a government really. Well, we sort of had a Congress, a makeshift Congress, but we are starting a country from scratch and it is chaos. And a lot of people say, you need to just go take power and just get things calmed down. And he refused to do that. He was leery of power. And he also thought we just fought this war and died for the idea that men, in that case, it really was just men, and not just men, but white men, and only white men that owned property. But it was a start and eventually it would be that people would govern themselves. Um, and then he also stepped down from power after his first two terms in office. Although it was kind of funny in the Adams book, Adams said, I think he couldn't wait to step down and go retire. But my point is, I think he was the only one that the Americans would believe they could trust as their first president, because he truly had shown himself as being incorruptible. So when I looked at Robespierre and I thought, oh, he's nicknamed Incorruptible, that must have just been a misnomer, and that he must have been a power-hungry guy, out for himself. Because I think, going back to Washington, I don't think Washington was out for himself. That's what I'm going to talk about as incorruptible. He really wasn't in it for himself. But Robespierre also wasn't. So as I dug a little bit, he really was a man that didn't take bribes. He wouldn't live in luxury. So people thought, well, he's virtuous. We can trust him, much as the American people thought we can trust Washington. So why does this guy end up leading to 16,000 beheadings, mass executions, just horrors? And what was interesting is he believed in the virtues and liberty. Like he had the very distinct idea of what virtue was going to be. And this is where it goes wrong, is he thinks if you disagree with him, if you dissent, then he is right in basically exterminating you, right? So, and using terror as a means to crush dissent. So the chilling part of this, and this is, you can come back to like the Spanish Inquisition or something, is he really thinks he's in the right. He thinks he's virtuous and he's just basically going to exterminate anyone that disagrees with him. Well, the difference would be Washington really was okay with dissent in the sense that he thought it was a natural part of government. And also, he was surrounded by men that disagreed with him. If you think about during his presidency, he's got Hamilton, he's got Jefferson, he's got Adams, none of whom frankly agreed with each other by any stretch, nor did they all agree with Washington, nor did Washington agree with all of them. And yet he didn't think dissent was dangerous, and his goal wasn't to crush anyone who disagreed with him. Contrast that with Robespierre, and he gets more and more fanatical, that even if you give a hint of doubting that his idea of virtue and liberty are correct, you can be sent to the guillotine. So it doesn't end well for this guy, ends quite a bit better for this guy, and let's see what happens. So in the end, Robespierre himself is sent to the guillotine, you might say by the same mob that he unleashed on everyone who disagreed with him. And where that sort of came down to is people started to get more and more paranoid themselves, thinking, wow, he is sending right, left, and center, even people that were his friends, to the guillotine because they expressed or even appeared to express something doubtful, and I could be next. So in a way, there's a certain amount of self-preservation, and they send Robespierre to the guillotine, and eventually Napoleon's going to come in, create a military dictatorship, and say, I'll take it from here. So the French Revolution does not end so well. Washington, on the other hand, gives up power voluntarily and retires to Mount Vernon, where he lives out his days. And I think I'm going to do a little moralizing here at the end, but I do think there's a lesson there in the United States where we clash quite a lot politically, right? That I think there's a lesson that regardless of which party you are, it doesn't matter. If you look at the other party and you think, oh my God, I could never listen to that, that's drivel, like I won't listen, shut it down. And I really do believe that goes both ways, that maybe to take a minute and think, we really are divided roughly half and half. And if half of the country believes one way and the other half believes the other, then neither can be completely right or completely wrong. So think to yourself, am I being a Robespierre where I will not even listen to the other side? Or am I more like Washington that says, you know what, I can hear your ideas, I can listen. So anyway, that was my tiny bit of moralizing. Thanks for letting me share. I actually really enjoyed looking a little bit into the French Revolution. I just wish I had more time to read more history. Tomorrow we'll talk the last part of these videos on the French Revolution about how it impacts the formation of the American government. So if you find yourself thinking that history stuff is chock full of cool people that I'd like to meet, you can travel to 1777 and go to the Battle of Saratoga, and it is freely downloadable till the end of August. And the code is in the description below.